All right, so now we can put it all together. So I've got all my different components slipped and scored appropriately. All right, just got to do a little thinking here as I put them together. All right, so I've got this side going on, and then I've got this little gap still right here. All right, and that's where my last one's gonna fit. Make sure that you turn it the right way so that the part that's slipped and scored is meeting the other part that's slipped and scored. All right, so like I did last time, there are a couple ways that I wanna press. I wanna press these two sides into each other with firm pressure, and then I wanna push this side down to make sure that it's connecting down at the base. Right, and again, I'm gonna push these two sides together, and then I'm pushing down to make sure that it's connected at the base. All right, and then pushing these two sides together as well. All right, so I've got a box, but you can see my edges are kind of loosely attached right now. There's some gapping. That's where coming in with the rib is gonna come in really handy. So I'm gonna push this just like gently out so that it's all the way on the corner. So with my hand inside there, I can provide counter pressure on the outside with a rib tool. Okay, so I'm just pushing out with my inside hand, and you can just go all the way around the whole piece now. And make sure that your corner edges are really nicely defined. You don't want anything that's gonna look rough or unintentional. All right, and then last but not least, I'm gonna come in on the inside and do my last couple of sides where I still haven't done my reinforcement with the coil. Oh, I forgot to slip and score. Gotta remember to slip and score on your inside before you put it in. There's already plenty of slip in there though. All right, so that's looking good. And I'm just pressing against that. All right, and that inner edge. All right, so that's it so far. You can see my finger marks on the inside there from where I pressed it in, but it's not blended yet. All right, and last couple of sides here. All right, so now I've got all of it pressed in there, and now I can really just get in and smooth it out using one of my fingers, or if my fingers don't fit, I could use a tool. And getting that nice and blended out. All right, and you see here, I pushed too hard and it popped that edge out. So I'm gonna wanna make sure that I push that back together really nice. My final move on this component is gonna be one last push on the edges to make sure that all of my edges on the inside and on the outside are just really nicely connected. It's a very satisfying thing to do, to just define your edges. Don't worry about the little crumbs that are on them at this time, because you can come back in with a sponge later on, or, you know, depending on what you're doing with your surface, you can hit it again. All right, so there's the essentials of your box, putting the main form together. But wait, what am I gonna do with these extra chunks that I have? What am I doing with this part? Well, that's gonna be your lid, and we'll talk about how that goes on. And then, wait, what are these ones for? These are gonna be the inside of the lid, as well as the feet that go underneath. So stay tuned for those parts. But if you're getting this, if it's nice and smooth on the inside, if your corners are coming crisp and square, you're in great shape. All right, good luck putting together your box. what should you do if your top is slightly uneven like mine? Well, really good question. So it's very slight, the unevenness, but you can see it's popping up in some of the corners. If you think you can eyeball it and you've got a steady hand, you could just come in and cut the parts exactly where they are. If you're feeling unsure though, another trick that you could do is you could take the straight edge from your templates, all right? Or you could take a straight edge from a ruler and figure out where it needs to go. So I think I'll use my ruler. So this is now measuring, because I've added on the base, this is coming to just a hair under 3 3/4. Or rather, it's just a hair under 3 1/2. So I'm gonna come to like one of the 16ths that's under that, and I'm just gonna mark it out all the way around. So I'm gonna take my tool and I'm gonna come to that same point all the way around. And again, if your top is not uneven, you do not need to do this. But if your top is uneven, measure, just taking a ruler and making marks all the way around at the same height, 2 on either side. Will enable you to have it be like really super straight again. All right, so I'm gonna then connect everywhere that I put 2 marks measuring up from the bottom. And I have to look at it, otherwise it's not gonna be straight. Okay, so I'm gonna draw a line there. And I'm gonna do that everywhere that I've marked out, taking care to line it up to the corner of what was next to it. Okay, so now I've got 2. And if your ruler slips, just do your best to bring it back. My ruler just slipped a little bit. All right, so I've measured all the way around, but I haven't cut it all the way in. But it looks pretty good to me. So with my ruler's assistance again, I'm gonna commit to my mark. All right, so I've just cut my first side. Don't try to freehand this part, like definitely use a ruler or at least something with like a flat straight edge. Like you could use a rib tool to do this. But if you don't use anything, your chances of ending up with a straight line are not so good. All right, so now I've got really flat straight top, and I can take a nice wet sponge now and just come in and smooth it so it looks continuous and really nice and easy to work with. And don't be afraid to just give it like a really good sponge all around. It'll take care of any little like rough spots, any inconsistencies. All right, so now I've got that there. And now I'm gonna come in and work with my lid. All right, so there are a couple of different ways to do a lid. The way I'm gonna show you today is one that fits on top, but there's another more complicated way where you go down on the inside of it and make a gallery for your lid, which I also really like. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll show you the hard way. The easy way is that you would take this lid, you would measure out this interior space on the inside. I'll show you both ways. You would measure out this interior space on the inside, and you would, I'm gonna do this on something that isn't my table. Cut yourself a couple of strips. And the strips would serve as your lid latch. All right, so I've cut this up. Oh, I didn't go all the way through. Let's try one more pass. All right, that time we got it. Okay, so I've made these little chunks, and what I would do, my favorite little cheat for this is that I could put a little wet slip around the upper edge, or just get it wet by squeezing out my sponge and just like deposit slip there. All right, and then I would take my lid piece and I would eyeball it to, you know, where it would be square and just like tap it on there. And then when I pop it off, I can see where the marks are. I want my lid bits to fit on the inside of those marks. So the slip mark is there, and that's where there's clay. I'm going to be putting my lid latch inside of that with a little bit of wiggle room to spare. So the way that that would work is that I would mark out like everywhere. I'm once again using the trick where I'm bracing my 2 fingers against the side of the piece, and then I'm dragging my tool. So I'm not trying to cut through. I'm just like marking out for myself like where this should go based on where the slip came to. And then I would cut my little strips here to fit inside of that space. Okay, some people would do a lid latch with just like 2 parts. You could do it with 2 like this and keep it like kind of simpler. I prefer to complete it all the way around. Just kind of gives it a little bit more of a sense of finish. So you're just like kind of cutting it to suit. All right, so this little thing would get slipped and scored on, and that would become the way that the lid latched on. So you could slip and score those all on into each other, and then they would fit on the inside. And you want it to be able to wiggle just a little bit as you put it on. Otherwise, when you glaze it, it'll end up being too tight. The other way involves a lid that fits down on the inside. And I'll show you that in a different video, I think, because the lid I just showed you is definitely the easier way to go about it. So I highly recommend that you try that. But if you really want to see the other way, I'll show you that too.